Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying. You find me in the car and there's a very good reason that I'm in the car, and that's because this was a kind of a last minute decision. I had a video planned for today, but I'm going to delay that until Monday because I wanted to talk about something that's going on. So, it's been quite a year for the WRC, hasn't it? There's been lots of flip-flopping is the only word that I think I can use, unfortunately, in terms of regulations and what we're going to do and what the future looks like. And the flip-flopping has continued. So, it has been reported now by both Autosport and Dirtfish.com that hybrid will be going from next season. It has not officially been ratified yet. It will be ratified apparently by the FAA at a World Motorsport Council meeting next month. But the word on the street is that hybrid is going. And I thought that was worth a discussion because some of you might be sitting there and thinking, what on earth is going on? Why are we having this flip-flopping back and forth? I thought we were keeping hybrid. There's lots to unpack, isn't there? So I just wanted to do a very quick run through of what's going on, why it's going on, and maybe hopefully fill in a few blanks for you and just address some of the underlying issues perhaps. So let's just dive right into it and talk about why the WRC has decided now again to ditch hybrid for 2025. So the question is, what has changed, isn't it? You know, we've been here before. Earlier in the year, the FIA, as part of its desire to revamp and reinvigorate the WRC, they set up this working group headed by David Richards, and they suggested that we should get rid of hybrid. So earlier in the year, it looked like hybrid might be going for next season. Then at that point, the teams themselves, they rejected the idea of getting rid of hybrid. They said that because they'd already invested in the technology, they wanted to see things through until the end of 2026 as planned, and obviously the manufacturers had a vested interest in keeping hybrid because it's central to the WRC and to staying relevant to production cars and all that jazz. So that was kind of where we were at. The FIA had suggested getting rid of it, but the teams had soundly said no. Now we find ourselves in the strange position where the teams are saying, yes, let's get rid of it. And the reason for that is complex, but perhaps understandable. So Compact Dynamics, who supply the spec hybrid system that is used in all the Rally 1 cars, they put in a request with the FIA saying that teams needed to stop resetting the system. So what was happening was that occasionally you were getting a hybrid fault and the teams were simply resetting the hybrid unit and carrying on. And Compact Dynamics have said that this shouldn't be happening. It's potentially dangerous. They shouldn't be doing it. So they said that every time this happened, rather than the teams doing a manual reset, the hybrid unit would have to be returned to Compact Dynamics. They would have to take it apart, check everything over, make sure it was fine, and then give it back. Now, this was going to cost the teams at least 50,000 euros every single time. So you can imagine that there was a bit of pushback, particularly from M Sport, who have budgetary constraints anyway. And they have said that it was potentially going to cost them millions each year. Such was the number of times they were having to do these resets. So I think it's very important to be clear here that this isn't a rejection of hybrid technology in and of itself. This is a rejection of Compact Dynamics and the new rule that they tried to have implemented, saying that the system had to be returned to them and a fee had to be paid for its repair, investigation, inspection, whatever you want to call it. Perhaps unsurprisingly, many of the drivers have said that they would like to retain the hybrid system. You know, obviously the teams are now saying that they want it gone, but the drivers are generally, from what I've seen, in favour. So there was an article on Dirtfish, and they had spoken to a few of the drivers, so Sebastian Ogier, Oi Tanak, Elfyn Evans, Taka Katsuta. They'd all said like they'd like to say. Interestingly, Thierry Neuville has said that he's worried that if we get rid of hybrid, that it will make the cars too simple. And there is potentially an argument for that. The cars mechanically are actually relatively simple now. While we use a space frame chassis, we don't have active diffs anymore. You know, the suspension and transmission is not that far removed in its principle from a Rally 2 car, so it's 5-speed sequential. As I said, no active differential. So there is some sense behind his argument. I'm not sure I buy into it completely, but that was Thierry Neuville's thinking. I think you have to be very aware here that in reality, you're probably not going to find too many racing drivers or rally drivers arguing for something that's going to make the car slower. You know, for them, they're going to lose 100 and something horsepower, aren't they? 130, 140 horsepower. And no driver is going to argue for that, are they? You know, every driver wants more. They always want more speed. So I think we have to be a little bit careful about what the drivers think. I think the critical thing here is what the teams think. And obviously the teams are not in favour of keeping hybrid. And Rich Milner from M Sport in particular has been very vocal about this increased cost. So what about Compact Dynamics, the supplier of the unit? Well, they have a contract in place until the end of 2026, but it appears that that contract is now going to be cancelled. Now, in theory, that could come with a financial penalty, you know, if the FIA, the WRC, decides to bring that contract to a close before the end of 2026. However, if the stakeholders have voted, and as I understand it, there was an electronic vote in favour of ditching the hybrid system, if they voted, well, there's not really that much that Compact Dynamics can do. I think that perhaps the more interesting question, or the more interesting point, is that, you know, the hybrid system, since it was introduced in 2022, hasn't actually been that reliable. There have been continuous hybrid faults across the, you know, the seasons that we have been using, at 22, 23 and 24. And I think you could argue that, you know, it has perhaps not met the reliability standards that we would have hoped, particularly now we're 3 seasons in. And that in itself might give the FIA and the promoter some wriggle room. I think this changing the conditions of the use of the hybrid system, this additional cost, this additional inspection routine, if you like, that also might give the FIA some wriggle room. I think ultimately right now we don't know what the contract situation is. Compact Dynamics have stayed very quiet, but I think it's safe to say that this whole affair has not reflected well either on the WRC, on the FIA, or on Compact Dynamics, and I think it has undermined the whole concept of hybrid technology in the WRC and in rallying. Whatever you think of it, whether you are in favour of it, whether you like it, whether you hate it, I think it's safe to say that this whole affair has definitely made it appear much worse than it potentially could have been, at least. So many of you will probably be watching this and celebrating. And I know, you know, every time I post about hybrid or the potential to remove hybrid, a lot of people are good riddance, they want it gone. For me, I think it's important to say at this point that this is not necessarily the end of hybrid in WRC. What this is the end of is Compact Dynamics supplying a hybrid kit to the WRC, and there is a very distinct difference there. And my personal view is that I am not against the concept of hybrid. For me, if they want hybrid, that's fine, if it's integrated in the right way. And I think that was the significant issue, is that the Compact Dynamics system was never the right solution. I always say this, I'm always against the idea of a single supplier for components, partly because it eliminates innovation. And something like hybrid in motorsport, you want innovation. You want the teams to create their own system. You want them to use it to sell their own technology, sell their own expertise, because that gives them something to market and it pushes things forward. Motorsport is always supposed to be about pushing things forward. If you have a spec system, you're not really progressing anything. Crucially as well, I've said this so many times, single suppliers always increase costs, because inevitably there will be some additional expense. It might be unforeseen, it might be accidental, it might be deliberate, it might just be them trying to squeeze profit. Now, I'm not saying that Compact Dynamics have done that, but single suppliers always end up increasing costs, and that is exactly what we have seen here. So what does this mean for the future? Well, as I said, hybrid is not necessarily going away forever. We have a significant rule change coming for 2027, and that could open the door for hybrids to return. That said, Compact Dynamics are pretty unlikely to return, aren't they? So we might see hybrid back, but I think if we do, we will probably see it as a manufacturer-based solution, so each team would be able to develop their own hybrid system. We might see some strict controls on that. We might even see in those regulations the ability for teams to come up with their own powertrain. They might be able to change the balance between how much is hybrid and how much is internal combustion. They might be able to use internal combustion as a range extender, as we've seen with some Dakar cars. Who knows? They might be able to go full electric. I think the important thing to remember is this probably isn't the end of hybrid in the long term, but in the short term, obviously, this is the end of the contract with Compact Dynamics. So it is important to remember that. I think the saddest thing from all of this, however, is the damage that it has done to the WRC in the short term. If you look at the back and forth, you know, let's get rid of hybrid, we're going to keep hybrid, no, we're going to get rid of hybrid. All of that, you know, the saga with Compact Dynamics, with them increasing costs, the fallout from the teams, you know, then you've got the potential departure of Hyundai at the end of next season. We've got a lack of direction with the technical regulations for 2027. We don't really know what they're going to look like, aside from them using some form of the space frame concept. All of this points to the WRC looking in real chaos right now. And I think that is the major takeaway from this. It is another example of a lack of direction, a lack of leadership, a lack of certainty. And that for me is a real problem. I'm not sorry to see Compact Dynamics go. I think it was a flawed implementation of the hybrid concept from the beginning, but for me it just points to much bigger problems in the WRC, and it's scary. I think, you know, with Hyundai potentially going, we have some big problems ahead of us potentially, and there's a lot to deal with. So I wanted to give that very quick overview. I hope it was helpful if you don't understand what's been going on. I totally get if you don't, because it is a very weird situation. So hopefully that's cleared some things up for you. More to come, I think, as we understand what is actually happening and as this gets confirmed and we look ahead to the new regulation set for 2027 and what's going to happen for Hyundai and all this stuff. So do stay tuned. Keep your eyes peeled. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. I very much appreciate your support, and I will see you next time.